Hello and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Fremont Unified Superintendent Kim Wallace, sitting in for KK Kaneshiro. Recognizing the important role media and technology play in our students' lives, Fremont Unified has partnered with Common Sense Media to help educators, parents, and families work with children to navigate the digital world. The district's sixth graders are taking a 10-week course provided by Common Sense Media on how to use the internet safely as well as becoming responsible digital citizens. With us to discuss this partnership is Common Sense Media Bay Area Regional Manager Jamie Nunez, as well as Hopkins Junior High Principal Corey Brown and FUSD Director of Student Support Services Greg Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have this topic to talk about what the digital world looks like for our students and how we help them work through some of the things that we're seeing in our classrooms, as well as how parents are seeing things happening at home with their kids. So Jamie, I'll start with you. Just tell us a little bit about Common Sense Media, how you came to be, and what kind of services you provide school districts.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Wallace. Appreciate your time. And how you doing, gentlemen?
Good.
So Common Sense Media has been around for over 15 years. We are the leading nonprofit dedicated to improving the lives of kids and families in this digital space. We all know that our kids are at the forefront of digital exposure in terms of the media that they expose and how they expose it with their peers. And so we're essentially there to help guide families, educators, and policymakers to make those right decisions. And we do that in a number of ways. We run our platform, which is commonly used by millions of people around the world. Common Sense Media, which is our ratings and reviews. So we rate and review books and apps and films. I'm a part of the Common Sense Education platform, where we are essentially working with close to about 800,000 teachers. We're in every state here in the United States, every school, or half of the schools here across every state here in the United States. And we provide a free lesson, a free curriculum for educators. And then we also work with policymakers to help support the privacy and families around their own privacy use. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
We love your organization. We're so thrilled to be partnering with you. And not all organizations that offer free materials have great materials, and Common Sense just has outstanding materials that we've been able to use. So I'll bring it over to Mr. Brown and talk about a little bit some of the materials that you've had and some of the resources that have been working at Hopkins this year.
So Common Sense Media, Jamie's come out and done presentations. We've done some joint teacher trainings with Mission High School, the school that we feed into. We've done presentations for the students, all the 7th and 8th graders, and also for their parents within the same week that that's happening. So we're trying to connect all the different pieces that kids, they're getting involved with online, at home, and at school. And the nice thing has been, the idea that there are two digital versions of kids. Our teachers in Fremont are just fantastic at integrating technology into using it to write an essay, to do their lab write-ups, to work it into their classes. But the part that Common Sense Media helps us with is the non-academic uses of technology that our kids are doing and making wise decisions online at home. We don't teach Instagram postings, and the teacher helps with the English essay, but who's helping them with what to do and not to do at home and to learn how to make those better decisions, and that's what they've been great at.
Yeah, Mr. Bailey, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the impacts of digital devices on students and how that they interact with them, and also how they get in trouble with them. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah,
and
I want to expand a little bit what Mr. Brown just stated earlier, is that we heard very positive feedback from the work he was doing with Hopkins and Mission. The district, led by Dr. Wallace, wanted to do more community outreach. So we did these at 4 or 5 events throughout the community. I think all of our high schools or junior highs hosted them. So make sure that every student in all of our communities had exposure to Common Sense Media. But really, in my role as the Director of Student Support Services, a lot of times our students are caught in situations where they don't know what they really are doing and what it could lead to. So I think the more awareness that we could give to our students and parents about some of the negative consequences that some of our media types or what they're posting on media might affect them academically and then sometimes with the law.
And when I visit classrooms and I talk to young people, I typically blow their minds by telling them that the internet was not in existence when I was in high school, because we can't even imagine a world without the internet and without all the devices that we have right now. And Jamie taught me a new term the other day that I just have latched onto, that I like so much better than digital citizenship, and it's digital wellness. So can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of that concept from citizenship to wellness?
Yeah, I think they're synonymous, and one of the things that I really appreciated about Fremont in its efforts to really not only understand what our kids are doing online and the responses that educators should have, but really taking a step back and saying what exactly is the well-being of our kids. That for any graduating Fremont student across our district, what essentially do we want them to be? What are the characteristics of that? Not only the graduate, but also what they're doing with those choices online, in this case online. So part of, I think, citizenship as well as wellness is for kids to identify what they're doing online, and to recognize and to reflect on those choices that they're making. So whether they're posting online, whether they're trying to brand themselves a certain way, they're trying to gain friendship and socialize in those networks. I think the efforts around having a wellness component to them is recognizing that their footprint actually means something, not only to themselves, but to their communities around them. Mm-hmm. And so I think a benefit not only in Fremont, but educators across Fremont that can instill those wellness characteristics, whether they're social emotional learning or whether they're just character traits that we want kids to exhibit while they're participating in a math lesson. They're all one and the same. So I think the evolution is really about understanding who they are in this academic space, and understanding that their own digital footprint is meaningful as they move on across the district.
And also the screen time conversation, and just the constant connectedness, and how it's actually changing the wiring in people's brains, including adults. I know I think that we're all suffer from it to some degree. And so think about being 12 or 13 years old when you're in sixth grade and learning some of those skill sets. So I think we should talk a little bit about what that looks like. Instructional Services has partnered with you to create these lessons for our sixth graders at Walters Middle School, our first of the 5 middle schools. So I'd like to hear about how that all kind of came together.
I think it really came together working with our curriculum instruction department. Knowing that we had an opportunity as we were going to the middle school model, what can we do with our sixth graders during that so-called elective period? We reached out to Jamie at Common Sense Media, and he was more than willing to meet with us. We've had a few meetings with him, and he did some intensive training with our staffs, so they're comfortable with the lessons. As Jamie stated earlier, they have lessons pretty much ready to go for the different grade levels. So it was a perfect opportunity as we moved into the middle school model to reach out and expand on that. And all of our sixth graders, when they transition, are going to get a Common Sense Media quarter-long elective with lessons that are provided by Common Sense Media. And more importantly, the training that they provide to our teachers so that our teachers are comfortable delivering the lessons.
Yeah, one of the things I really love about Common Sense is that the lessons are really robust, and they're so student friendly. And I think that sometimes it can come across as we're telling them, no, don't you do this, don't you do that. But I feel like this is coming from a different angle. So Mr. Brown, can you talk a little bit about some of the feedback from your kids around it?
Yeah, that to me is one of the most real things about Jamie's presentation, about the work with the group, that there's some groups that go in as that just don't, all social media is bad and don't use it, and that's just not realistic.
No.
Like, the kids are using it, and so once we acknowledge that, then we move into, if you're going to use it, which we know you are, what should you be doing on there, and what are some things to watch out for? And the other really important piece of it is there's a lot of kids that don't necessarily do anything wrong, but they see things that others do that are wrong, and a lot of the time they don't know, without being explicitly taught, who could I talk to? What do I do if I see this sort of thing online, or this other behavior? And that's not a natural kind of thing for them either. Right. When the discussion was coming up about working this into the curriculum that all sixth graders would have as we transition to middle school, I think there was a lot of debate about what topics the sixth graders should have, what should the elective wheel, except for this one item. I know all the junior high school and high school, it was like unanimous. So we got to have something about digital citizenship in there.
It's really interesting that you both noted that, because I do really want to highlight that you said something earlier, Greg, that Common Sense partnered with the district to host these or facilitate these sessions with parents. And I know initially when we first came into the district, there was quite a bit of concern parents had their kids using not only their devices in and out of school, but the response that educators as well as schools were going to actually have throughout the district. And so I think part of the initial celebration was to deconstruct technology and digital citizenship or digital meetings for families. Like, let's identify what those values are. And then I think it just naturally led to the professional development we had at the school, as well as developing a curriculum that would really support students here at the district. And I do think the curriculum that we offered was amazing. I think it does do a number of things. One is it allows students to understand the complexities behind some of these issues. And Corey, you pointed this out, right? That it's very difficult. It's very easy for us to say, well, you need to tell an adult when you feel like you're being cyberbullied. It's a lot harder for our kids to really navigate what those spaces look like. And so I think the curriculum, as well as how both the teachers as well as the school has actually been able to use the content to work for their own student body, has just been remarkable.
So we're all much older than 12-year-olds. What do parents need to know? What are they doing with the media? Because every time I hear about a new app or platform, TikTok, I still don't even really know what that is, and it's like I can never keep up. And I'm pretty, computer savvy, and I consider myself kind of with it. But what is it that kids are doing that is different from how we lived when we were growing up?
I would say one of the things I think when we talk about parent awareness is, like Mr. Brown said, students are going to use their cell phones and use the internet to communicate with their friends, or if they want to be liked, or whatever they want to do. And there's a lot of hidden apps out there that parents should just be aware of what is really out there. And then we would like that discussion to happen with families about what's allowable and not allowable. We certainly have education code that we adhere to when it comes to things, but more importantly, outfitting the parents so they could also be part of the communication with their own children. And don't be afraid to look at your child's phone. Look at the apps and see what they are. See what your son or daughter are posting that might affect them either now or in some cases in the future.
It's funny, he says the kids are going to use the phones and use the technology. That's true, but there's something they're not going to use, and it's whatever their parents are using. So if their parents are
no
on
wonder
Facebook,
I don't know.
they're going to be using a new or more up-to-date, cooler app that is kind of more cutting edge and does a lot of different things. And just in the last few years, the bump up of live video postings that can go out instantly to everybody changed the whole game again, I think. And so the apps are always trying to use the latest technology to capture the kids while they're young and keep them on there as well.
And I'll just echo both your sentiments. I think I usually give families about 3 tips. The first is really understanding the media that their child is using, not I want to now be a leader, or I want to now be able to use TikTok, but understanding why your child is actually using the device, right? Or the particular platform is important. 2 is really just to create a model by which to use it, right? We say no to our kids, but we have an opportunity to share what that communication might look like. And so if they feel like there's trust there, it's great for families to start having conversations about what that narrative might look like when they create a profile for themselves or when they want to respond to something. And I think finally it's just thinking about how media can actually be used for good, which is, are there examples where parents could not only model that behavior but also celebrate their kids when they're exhibiting some of those behaviors. So some of those upstanding topics that you were referring to, right? If they see a fight, are they willing to post it, or are they willing to tell an adult? And when they do, can adults, primarily their parents, really recognize that? So, yeah.
We have had a lot of students in the past who've let our school resource officers know or let their principals know, hey, I saw this on social media. They contact them over the weekend. We get a ton of information
Amazing.
from the students themselves, which has been amazingly helpful, and it just really does show that they are using it for good as well, and they understand that some of the negative uses of social media and the consequences can be really harsh. So I know that you guys have probably seen that take
Oh, yeah.
place. And
I'd add too that you know, there's a lot of parents that do the kinds of things that you guys are talking about, looking at their kid's phone, having discussions. What's this app for? How come you're posting about these kinds of things? And if the parents see something inappropriate, they'll often be the ones too to send us a message in, even if they don't know who the other student was or that kind of thing. And we always, you know, send back, you know, thank you for monitoring this and helping us keep all kids safe, because their kid was safe, but who knows about someone else.
Exactly,
and so we've
right.
appreciated that. We think of it as a partnership with the parents also.
Right.
Like, it's not going to be just one side or the other that's responsible for this.
And what's so beautiful is that when you have a district like Fremont that actually creates a setup or an environment that enables parents to communicate not only the concerns but also the ways in which their kids are doing something beneficial for online, is just it's a recipe for something beautiful to happen. So bravo to everyone. Yeah.
I think one of the changes we've seen is that instead of just being receivers of the content, the kids are creating the content, sometimes as young as 8 or 9 years old. And so that is a game changer as well that we haven't seen really up until recently.
Yeah.
And so teaching them about that responsibility is really important too.
Yeah, and I think that what's happening from the initial feedback that we got at Hopkins was that a number of those teachers are actually taking those lessons to make it applicable across those content areas. So it's really an amazing experience.
Yeah, and some of the content is amazing too. Recycling and global awareness around different political issues. I mean, the kids are using their voices, which is a beautiful thing. And that's really what we want, is for them to be able to express what they've learned, what they're passionate about, and be a force of good in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen that as well. It's not just the negative side of social media.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I really appreciate you all joining me here this afternoon. This is a small dive into a very deep topic, and something that I'm sure will evolve over time, and we'll be back having more conversations around what our students are doing and how our families can support them and how we can be partners all around. So Jamie, thank you so much for the work that you do with Common Sense Media, and Mr. Brown for your leadership at Hopkins, and Mr. Bailey for being one of our great district leaders for a very long time now. So I am Kim Wallace, Superintendent of Fremont Unified, and I am so grateful to have had you here this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.